Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s name will remain on Wisconsin's presidential ballot, even though he is no longer running. The state Supreme Court upheld a lower court's ruling that candidates can only be removed from the ballot if they die. RFK Jr. has been trying to get his name off ballots in key battleground states. Now, after he surrendered his campaign, Kennedy endorsed Donald Trump. The presence of independent and third-party candidates on the ballot could be a key factor in Wisconsin.
Interesting development. And the focus on the battleground states today, also sending Vice President Kamala Harris to the U.S.-Mexico border in Arizona. Joining us now to talk about this week's political headlines is host of the WGN Political Report, Paul Lisnek.
Hi, guys. Good to see you.
Good to see you, too. So let's talk about Harris and Trump. And you've got 39 days until the election, and they're each focusing on sort of their weakest points. How's that working out for them?
Weakest points in most questionable states, right? You're not seeing them come to Chicago. You're not seeing, well, either of them come to Chicago, right? And so Harris is literally just tonight was at the border in Arizona, gave a speech. I watched that to an audience in Arizona. And, you know, what's really interesting about that is if you just kind of take her for the speech that it is, it was a very strong speech. What she plans to do, clearly differentiating herself from the Biden administration, clearly will be more tough on immigration than Biden, but talked about taking a humane approach to this and going after Trump a great deal. The tough part of it is, and what she doesn't deal with and probably can't, is for 3.5 years, the Biden administration just didn't address the problem. And her argument there could be, this was President Biden's administration. I'm here to support it. This will be my administration, and we're going to do things differently. But she steps away from that. But nevertheless, if you pull that 3.5 years, we didn't do anything out of it. Her words tonight were fairly strong, and I think well accepted by that audience in Arizona.
Well, let's talk about the other side and the politics of Ukraine. Donald Trump meeting with Volodymyr Zelensky, the president.
Met with him before he wasn't going to meet with him.
Right, exactly. But I mean, you refer to the awkward dynamic between the two because Zelensky does not have an ally in Donald Trump. If Trump wins the election, does that, you think, mean a surrender to Vladimir Putin?
Well, there's two pieces there. First of all, why did Zelensky meet? He's got to. Right? This is the ball game for Zelensky. So he's got to hope, whether it's Trump or Harris, he's in their ballpark with them. So he's doing what he's got to do. Trump just yesterday basically gave in his speech, basically made it clear that, you know, Ukraine just surrendered land and whatever. It's pretty clear the direction he's going to go, and it's not great for Ukraine. And he said he wasn't going to meet with Zelensky because Zelensky had apparently said some negative things about him, and that's usually all it would take. But he changed his mind, and they met together today, and they spoke afterwards, and Trump began to sound more positive. We'll have to work it out. We have to find a resolution. He didn't necessarily say we support Ukraine, we'll be there, we'll help you win. He's never talked about Ukraine winning this thing or the importance of Ukraine winning. He simply talks about this must be resolved. I think Zelensky knows very well that whichever way this goes, if Donald Trump is president, it's not going to be good news for Ukraine sustaining itself.
Their relationship goes back a long way.
It does. It goes back to the first perfect phone call and instructions, and that was the first impeachment tied to that. But yeah, those were the days also involving Zelensky.
Okay, I want to stay on Trump, but I want to talk about his legal troubles in the January 6th case. The special counsel in that case went to the judge and said, I want to submit this new evidence. I want you to make it 87 pages. Look at that. Yeah, he wants it to be released to the public. Is that likely to happen, and what else could we learn?
So it's in the hands of the judge. If you are a Trump supporter, you're saying that stuff shouldn't get released to the public because that will really harm Trump in the campaign. It's an assumption you know it's in there. Right. We can assume it's not good for Trump. But on the other hand, Judge Chutkan has made it very clear that she does not care about the political calendar. She, along this entire way, has said, I don't care that there's a political election going on. I've got a trial to deal with. So will she release it? I think the odds are she will release certainly parts of it. She may find some of it is too sensitive, but not because of a presidential campaign. It may be along the lines of witnesses involved, names involved. What I expect we might see are parts of Vice President Pence's testimony before the grand jury, those kinds of things. I think we're going to get something, and I think what Jack Smith knows, and Chutkan knows it as well, the judge, is that this is the only and final thing that if anything on all these trials he's been through is going to come out before the election, this is it. No more trials, no more, this is the one thing that can happen is putting some of this information out into the public. But again, even Jack Smith, people could say, oh, he's after Trump. Jack Smith, I mean, again, he's a prosecutor, he's a lawyer. He just thinks the public should have this information. It's part of overall disclosure that prosecutors often look at in cases that they try.
All right, real quick, let's talk about J.D. Vance and Tim Walz debating next week. How significant is that going to be, and how is it going to go?
Well, look, people vote for the top of the ticket, not necessarily the Veep thing. I'll be watching it, of course. It'll be critical. I think it's going to end up being, I don't know, but it's going to end up being a draw. Waltz will be the likable coach guy next door that we like. Vance is tough, and he is going to, I mean, unlike Trump, who really got taken by Harris in their debate here, Vance is going to be much tougher to deal with. I think he's going to try and really pin down, no coach reference intended, but pin down Walz and what he's doing. The thing is, Walz isn't going to go for it. It's not who he is. So the question is, I think Trump supporters will see Vance as strong and tough, and Democrats will see Vance as being unfair and being mean against Walz. Walz will just end up being like, I think in the end, it's a draw between them, and no matter who wins, it doesn't really make a difference in the election anyway. But we'll see. It'll be interesting to watch.
Okay, yes, it will.
And maybe the last debate between any of these
Sounds like
candidates.
it will
That's
be.
right.
Right.
Yeah, Paul Lisnek, you always have such great insight. We
Thank you,
appreciate
Lourdes.
you. You got a special show this weekend.
Every week is special, Lourdes. You know that as you watch it. But this weekend, I'm going to be joined by Forrest Claypool. You remember Forrest? He was part of the Daley administration, chief of staff and head of the parks and everything. He's just written a new book called The Daily Show about Richard M. Daley. We're going to talk all about it and go in depth. I've read his book. Richard Gordon will join me, a Democratic strategist, talking about the election and the upcoming debate and all of that. And then next Thursday, I'll be interviewing journalist Max Boot about his new the first definitive biography about President Ronald Reagan. We'll talk about that on the midday show at 11:45 on Thursday.
Always busy you are.
I love this
Okay,
stuff.
Thanks,
thank you,
Paul.
Paul.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.